So hi, I'm Christian Buckner. I lead the data and AI platform at Altair. Altair is a software company, been in business about 40 years and was just acquired by Siemens for $10 billion. Basically, the organization provides software in three different domains, one in product design, one in high performance computing, and one in data and AI. And it's this third one that I'm responsible for, data and AI at Altair.
Out of interest, why did Siemens decide to acquire you guys?
That's a great question. I think there's probably a bunch of reasons on the Siemens side, but I think we're a great software company. We've a lot of revenue and grown consistently for 40 years, and I think we're very innovative. We've been bringing together the fields of product design and HPC and AI, and I think we're one of the first to do that. In my particular area, I think we're also very innovative in how we bring together different technologies across the data lifecycle. And I think that drives a lot of the interest.
So today, obviously, we're talking about use of AI, specifically as it relates to financial services. When it comes to getting the most out of AI, it feels like you get good data in, you get better data or good results out. How have you seen, looking at your customers or within the financial services space in particular, how and where are they getting their data from? Data that's clean, data that's meaningful, and that's safe to use, etc. Do you have any use cases of applications or sources and applications as far as you've seen?
Sure. So I think at financial services organizations, but also at many enterprises, the main issue in being able to implement effective AI strategies and automation strategies, as you've indicated, is really the underlying data problems. And that is like the first step before you get to AI and automation. You have to solve this host of complexities that exist before AI and automation. And I think maybe the concern or the challenge that exists can be encapsulated just in one phrase, which is data silos. Most organizations, enterprises in particular, are very large. They have a diverse set of people with a diverse set of organizational goals, and each one of those has their own isolated objective and then therefore their own isolated data strategy and their own isolated data solution. And this then breeds 1,000 or 100 or many different data silos across the organ. One that might be a core banking system or a core financial services system. One might be a database like Snowflake or Databricks. One might be just a standalone Postgres database. There are hundreds and hundreds of different data sources or streaming data sources that exist across these organizations. And really the first challenge that I think exists in the AI journey is bringing these things together, bringing together contextual information from siloed source systems like business systems and databases and data warehouses and data lakes, and creating a contextual model that then automation and AI can work with on top of that. And so oftentimes we see, for example, organizations implementing something called a knowledge graph to be able to bring together all these different sources and then contextualize them with new relationships and connections between all the different silos to create a unified model of an organization's data. And what that enables, as you've indicated, is the next step. The good data that can go into AI and automation in the context where it makes sense with relationships between what were previously siloed data sources, which enables AI and people within organizations to dive several levels deeper in their triangulation of problems, for example, or in their automation of cross-domain situations. So overall, I think that is really the fundamental problem to solve is just integrating everything into one contextual model so that then downstream AI and automation can work with it.
And as you alluded to in the beginning, you guys have been doing this for some time, and I'm sure you've been servicing financial services companies for a big part of that time, if not the whole time. Yeah. But what trends or fundamental shifts have you seen when it comes to how they think about AI or machine learning or large language models in general?
Well, the interesting thing about financial services and banking and even insurance is that these are organizations that have been in the data business a long time. So they're one of the first organizations to implement credit and credit scoring models. They're one of the first to implement AI and automation for customer-facing use cases and for predictive and analysis use cases. What we're seeing more and more is the next level, the moving on from the core use cases that have been in banking and financial services for 30 years to now implementing the next generation of automation that everybody's talking about. And again, I think banking and financial services are really at the forefront of this and implementing agentic AI as well as generative AI to be able to augment the people that they have. So creating assistants and being able to and assistants that can automate individual processes for individual people, but then also building agents that can autonomously act for the business. And these things, I think, are ushering in a new age for banking and financial services organizations to be able to act with less overhead of administration and simultaneously enable individuals to be more innovative in their day-to-day jobs.
So we're going to talk a little bit about risk, but the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about that is there's a talk about hallucinations and when AI get it wrong. And if you use public services like ChatGPT, they kind of signpost that, just so you know, we can be wrong. But perhaps
Yeah,
banks can't really be wrong. They can't underwrite a customer incorrectly
it's
or
not okay.
give the wrong
Yeah.
financial advice. How are banks in particular making sure that they're not giving the wrong advice, either as internally or perhaps even worse to a customer?
I think that's a great question. And I think, as with your first question, it really starts with the baseline data integration and data fabric layer. You have to build into this baseline data integration layer the ability to govern who can see which data, and then also to control what downstream AI and analytics and automation can do with the data that exists. So in that layer, you can build in governance to be able to evaluate how AI is interacting with the underlying data, the outcomes that are coming from that, to build in regulatory concerns, for example, the EU AI Act. So if you have a knowledge graph, you can build this contextual model that includes not just the organization's data, but all the regulations and restrictions and guardrails that would be appropriate for an AI model to act with into that. So that then becomes also the context that the AI model acts with. So when you have a generative AI model and you build in these guardrails into this contextual model that exists for the whole enterprise, it will act with those as part of the context for every additional action that it takes if it's an agent, or any suggestion that it makes if it's an assistant. And this, I think, is really important because then you can build in all the things that you can eliminate all the things that you're concerned about within generative AI and agents. Hallucinations go away, for example, because in that data fabric you can build in controls to make sure that basically the request fails instead of producing something that doesn't make sense. You can also make sure that it isn't taking into account all of the internal regulations and restrictions that you might have, but also all of the external regulations and restrictions. And I think then by layering on top of that things like traceability and evaluations of the actions, you're able to both have trust up front that an agent is going to act the way that you want, and then have auditability down the line to make sure that it actually did act the way that you want. And as you've said, in financial services and in banking, this is especially important because there are serious regulatory outcomes that can exist if you don't follow the rules, basically.
One of your products is a product called Rapid Miner, which helps people that doesn't necessarily have a technical background to build their own AI models, a sort of low code or no code tool. What are some of the risks, or how do you think about helping coaching your customers in how to enable more of their employees to use no code AI tools to keep the business safe and the outcome safe of working with platforms such as RapidMiner?
Yeah, I think in the end, what it really comes down to is having a diverse approach. So RapidMiner is an end-to-end platform that provides tools that are low code and no code for those that want to do exploratory analysis using a low code solution, but also provides coding tools for much more advanced users. And by having both of these in the same place, what we're enabling is these two different types of teams, expert users and non-expert users, to collaborate and really come up with solutions that keep the non-expert users safe, but simultaneously keep the things that shouldn't be in the expert's hands, like changing colors on graphs, for example, on the side that is, for non-expert users. And that gives, I think, teams that are business or domain teams a lot more power to do things on their own without having to wait back and forth for this. Can you change it? This is a silly example, but can you change this color on a graph? And then 3 weeks later, okay, it's maroon now, but actually I wanted blue, and you go back and forth and back and forth. But that disconnect can cause a lot of slowdown. If you put the power in the hands of the domain, then they're able to do things on their own that would be in the hands of the expert teams otherwise. And then the expert teams can focus on really high value, high impact projects that would require the know-how that an expert team brings. And I think what RapidMiner does really is brings together these development tools, both for expert and non-expert tools or users, and simultaneously layers in the underlying background services so that AI and automation can be built upon a solid foundation. So the knowledge graph and data fabric and data integration components are a key aspect of Altair RapidMiner because, as I said earlier, a lot of the core issues in implementing AI and automation exist far before you ever get to the development of AI and automation. It's in the data integration and data governance components. So when we bring all of those things together in Altair RapidMiner, what we find is that organizations are able to get from not having a lot of data literacy broadly within the organization and not having a lot of AI automation to being able to implement AI automation effectively at a broad scale, safely and securely. And I think that really that's been transformative for a lot of the organizations that we work with. And so we continue to iterate in being able to provide more features in each one of those stages of the data lifecycle.
And on that note, then, what do you think most business leaders misunderstand when it comes to building safe and reliable, explainable AI systems?
Well, there's no one fit solution. I think I think that it's very easy to fall into I want to have a vertical solution for this that has AI in it, and vertical solution for this that has AI in it, and usually those are very safe and secure, but ultimately they don't answer the same breadth of questions that many organizations want them to be able to answer. So you have a tool that can answer questions about one particular process within financial services, but then analysts who want to answer questions that are cross-domain don't have the same ability to do that. And so I think one of the misconceptions is that you can onboard a bunch of vertical tools that will then solve this how to implement AI concern. But if you really want to make AI part of your competitive advantage and integrate it into the business, it has to fit the business exactly how the business is today. And all these vertical tools are both opinionated and then also another silo we're finding within organizations. So organizations that are more forward thinking and want a foundation for building AI well into the future, we're finding are building these contextual models across different silos and then building customized bespoke applications to be able to solve specific problems. And then you get the best of both worlds. You get the combination of data across different silos and domains. You get the control and governance from that underlying layer, and you get a user application or a piece of automation that is then able to drive a specific business process. And then that combination, I think, is extremely powerful. Yeah.
And obviously, you guys have been in the business for a long time, and feels like momentum is growing now, at least interest in the hype around AI in particular.
Sure.
If you were allowed to kind of forecast and fantasize about the future, what do you think financial institutions in particular will be doing with AI? Or how will they be leveraging it in a few years, 3-5 years from now?
Well, I think what we're on right now is a sliding scale of what an AI, especially an AI agent, can do. I think we're going to find that AI agents start to automate more and more tasks that would conventionally be done by humans. I think we'll also find that, for example, the vast majority of users of software in the future will be agents going forward. Not necessarily because they're replacing people at a broad scale, but because it's much easier to build an agent than it is to hire a human. You could build 10 agents in the time it takes to onboard one human. The agents are all onboarded immediately. And so you'll find thousands and thousands and thousands of specific task agents that are onboarded that then become users of software in the end. That said, I think the transformation of AI isn't limited to replacing people or reducing waste in the way that people are afraid that it will be, but more it's augmentation. The people, I'm sure I wasn't really around at the time, but I'm sure when the calculator was introduced, there was a lot of naysaying, you need to be able to do these things, first principles math, because then you will never learn how to do the math if you don't learn it. But today we use calculators and computers and everything else very readily, and I don't think that the world is worse off for it. And we're all able to move much, much faster as a result of having first calculators and then computers and then much more. I think AI is going to be the same thing. I think we're going to be able to 10x ourselves as individuals by being the manager of many, many agents and by having assistants that take over menial tasks that weren't value added anyway. And I think the future will all be in a position to be able to do that safely and easily. And what I'm hoping is that the tools that we're providing at Altair are the ones that are going to be able to accelerate that. So I think, I don't know if it's 3 or 5 or 10 years, but I do think, as I said, we're on the sliding scale where it will increase over time.
Christian, thank you very much for your very exciting insight. We look forward to following Altair and what you guys do next.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been great. And hopefully talk soon.